Brought to you by...
Villains! Dissemble no more! I admit the deed. Tear up the planks! Here! Here! It is the beating of his hideous heart! A Telltale Heart is a classic story, one that has been told and retold in varying forms since Poe first penned it. Every now and then, we get a new retelling, one that reshapes the core themes into a new form, to redeliver that same message that remains forever poignant. Hello friends, and welcome back to ETF. The Sound, written and directed by Patrick Stagg, offers a contemporary reimagining of Edgar Allan Poe's classic tale, The Telltale Heart. Stagg's film masterfully blends Poe's psychological horror with a modern setting, infusing the story with fresh relevance, while remaining true to the source material's essence. The film centers on a man living in a small, isolated countryside home, tormented by an inexplicable and persistent noise. The sound gradually escalates, manifesting as an auditory hallucination that wears down his sanity. Much like the narrator in A Telltale Heart, the man becomes increasingly paranoid and unstable, unable to escape the disorienting noise, which drives him toward a tragic and inevitable conclusion. The visual look of The Sound plays a crucial role in establishing the atmosphere of dread and isolation that pervades the film. Patrick Stagg's direction, paired with the cinematography, creates an intentionally sparse and unsettling aesthetic that reflects the protagonist's deteriorating mental state. The visual style is notably minimalist, reinforcing the protagonist's sense of isolation. The film takes place primarily within the confines of this small, rural house, with the camera often focusing on empty rooms and muted spaces that heighten the character's sense of confinement. The stark emptiness of the home mirrors the character's growing sense of alienation, both from the external world and from his own mind. The house itself becomes a prison, a place where the protagonist is trapped not only by his physical surroundings, but by his spiraling thoughts. The lighting is intentionally subdued and cold, further enhancing the film's sense of detachment. The light is often harsh and unflattering, casting long shadows across the house's walls and floors. This creates an atmosphere of tension and unease, as his sense of reality begins to unravel. The shadowy corners and dimly lit spaces suggest the horrors the protagonist faces are not just external, but also rooted in the darkest recesses of his psyche. The use of natural light in certain moments, such as during the daylight hours, provides some contrast, but it often feels distant and disconnected from the character's internal state. The light does not offer comfort, but rather emphasizes the loneliness and emptiness of the environment. At night, when the protagonist is at his most vulnerable, the lighting becomes more erratic, casting disturbing, elongated shadows, and further contributing to the sense of mental disarray. The color palette is muted and desaturated, with cold tones of gray, blue, and beige dominating the visuals. This lack of vibrant color reinforces the atmosphere of unease, as well as the protagonist's emotional and psychological withdrawal. The color scheme reflects the starkness of the man's surroundings, and the monotonous, oppressive nature of his environment. The lack of warmth or vibrant colors also symbolizes his emotional isolation and the bleakness of his mental state. In moments where the protagonist's anxiety heightens, the color subtly shifts to intensify the mood. For example, during moments of heightened tension, the lighting may take on an eerie greenish hue, adding to the sense of dread and the unnatural quality of his experience. This restrained use of color helps convey the protagonist's internal struggle, where reality and his mind's disturbing projections blur together. The film's camera work often employs tight close-up shots, that focus on the protagonist's face and hands, allowing the audience to closely observe his growing panic and anxiety. These shots are claustrophobic, isolating the viewer within the character's experience. The framing often emphasizes emptiness, such as wide shots of the house that leave vast, open spaces around him, underscoring his profound solitude. The movement of the camera is deliberate and kept restrained, much like the pacing of the film itself. Slow zoom-ins and lingering shots of key objects, such as a clock on the wall or windows, builds a sense of suspense. There's an almost voyeuristic quality to the cinematography, as though the viewer is peering into the protagonist's private torment, witnessing his slow unraveling. The stillness of the camera mirrors the stagnant, suffocating atmosphere of the film, where everything feels suspended in a state of impending collapse. The visual design is not just about creating atmosphere, but also serves as a means of communicating the protagonist's inner turmoil. The house is depicted in such a way that it seems to reflect the protagonist's mental state. As the protagonist becomes more consumed by the noise, the house itself appears less hospitable. Windows become framed by dark shadows, doors seem like barriers to escape, and even the furniture feels stark and unwelcoming. These visual cues suggest the character's growing sense of entrapment and his inability to escape his own mind. The auditory hallucinations that torment the protagonist are not shown directly through visuals, but there are subtle visual cues that suggest his growing paranoia. For example, the camera may linger on objects that suddenly seem to take on a menacing quality, like a clock ticking loudly in an empty room, or the dim flicker of a light bulb, intensifying the sense that something is wrong in the otherwise normal environment. These small, seemingly insignificant details build the tension without overtly showing anything supernatural, relying instead on the visual suggestion of an unraveling reality. At its core, The Sound is a study of isolation, paranoia, and the fragility of the human mind. Stagg utilizes minimalism, both in terms of location and dialogue, to heighten the sense of psychological confinement. The man's countryside home, devoid of distractions, becomes a character in and of itself, amplifying his sense of entrapment. The creeping dread is built through meticulous sound design, which plays a central role in the narrative. The noise itself is subtle at first, but as it grows louder and more invasive, it becomes the film's driving force, gradually breaking down the protagonist's grip on reality. The noise, disturbing and relentless, embodies the tension of guilt and dread, while the external world is quiet and unchanging. The internal world of the man becomes increasingly chaotic, mimicking Poe's portrayal of a mind unraveling under the weight of its own conscience. The way Stagg incorporates this auditory hallucination is a brilliant homage to Poe's original story, where the beating heart symbolizes an unacknowledged guilt that consumes the narrator. Like Poe's Telltale Heart, The Sound explores themes of guilt, paranoia, and the psychological consequences of isolation. The protagonist's torment is not just caused by the external noise, but by his inability to escape the horrors of his own mind. Stagg's adaptation emphasizes how isolation, both physical and mental, can distort perception and unravel the psyche. The concept of the noise as an external manifestation of the protagonist's internal guilt is a central theme. As the man becomes consumed by the sound, his struggle to identify its source mirrors his struggle to face the consequences of his actions. The noise serves as a constant reminder that, much like the heartbeat in Poe's story, the weight of guilt cannot be ignored or silenced. The Sound is a chilling and effective short film that successfully modernizes Poe's classic tale, while retaining the timeless psychological horror that made the original so compelling. Stagg's direction, combined with a haunting performance and impeccable sound design, creates a tense, atmospheric experience. By focusing on the fragile nature of the human mind and the destructive power of guilt, The Sound offers a gripping exploration of madness that will resonate with fans of both Poe's work and psychological horror in general. In less than 20 minutes, The Sound manages to terrify, disturb, and leave a lasting impression, proving that in the world of short horror films, brevity can often be just as effective as depth in delivering a truly haunting experience. Well, friends, that's going to be all for now. If you'd like to check out this film for yourself, I've linked it down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe for more content, and if you really want to help support this channel, come find us over on Patreon. Your support there helps this channel grow, and gets us closer to that goal of being able to make videos for you full time. Until next time, stay safe, beware the sound, and as always, thanks for watching.